Hi everyone. I really am excited to be here, and I'm really happy that you're able to join me to listen. Gavin is someone I met, first worked with, in fact, almost 10 years ago at Julianesque Valley College. And even back then, he was one of the most dedicated, enthusiastic people I had ever met. I mean, this is somebody you would just meet, and he would just talk continuously about his students, and you knew you were in a good place when you saw the amount of work he did for his students. And I'm glad to see that today he's here with us today just to share some of the things he's doing at Edinburgh College. And this is particularly exciting because the work that he's doing and that he's sharing with us is something that we could all take part in. He's going to show us some techniques that could easily be reproduced where you are today. And just use some of the ideas and learn from the experiences that Gavin's had. So sit back, warm your cup of coffee, and just enjoy the next 30 minutes as Gavin tells you his story.
Thanks, Kenji, for that introduction. I'll give you that money later. For those who don't know me, I've been working for 8 years at Edinburgh College as a core skills numeracy lecturer. I have a wide variety of students ranging from hairdressing, beauty therapy, some of them going to university to study nursing or primary education, but they all have one thing in common. They struggle with the basics at numeracy or maths. So consequently, they have a lot of baggage, and it's quite difficult sometimes to engage them. So I've been experimenting for the last couple of years using different apps to create short teaching videos, which the students do like. Unfortunately, they don't actually view them on our college VLE on Moodle, so I thought, how can I overcome that problem? Well, most of my students, as I'm sure you're aware, are addicted to their smartphones, so I thought maybe I could use their addiction to smartphones to overcome that problem. So that's where I combined my use of apps to create short teaching videos with the use of QR codes, which I incorporate into their worksheets and handouts. So it means that they can scan these worksheets directly, watch the videos through YouTube, rather than going on to the college VLE, which most of them don't tend to do. We're not talking about self-directed learners here, so we have to make things as easy as possible for them to engage them. So in terms of the format, you're going to experience what I call mobile blended learning, which just means that you're going to use your smartphone to scan what's effectively a worksheet on the screen, and then you can see what the student would see with their mobile phone. So it means that if they come in late to a lecture, for example, I'll give them the handout or worksheet, and they can scan the QR code that's on the worksheet that explains what they have to do. Also, an important point to note is that all the worksheets also have a worked out example as well. So if their phone's not working, if their battery's died, that's okay. And similarly for yourselves, if your smartphone's not working, if you're having problems with the QR reader, then don't worry, you won't miss out. You will actually see the video because I'll play that as well. So I'll explain the method, I'll go through the method, I'll show you examples, and we'll have time for questions. We'll also have a pause maybe halfway through once I've explained the method to take some questions. We'll have a question session at the end as well. Okay? So if you have done so already, could you actually switch on your smartphone and make sure you've downloaded the QR Reader app? So now I'm going to play the video that I play for all my students when I start the class in August or September, and I introduce the idea of apps with their phone. So I'm just going to play this video.
Do you recognise this? It's called a QR code. Look out for it on your worksheets and handouts. If you scan it with your phone, it may link to a video, a website, or other relevant material. If you don't already have a QR code reader on your phone, then you need to download a free app. Do it now.
You see in front of you now is taken from a worksheet that I give to my students. And you can see it's to do with ratio, so don't worry, it's not a maths lesson. The main thing to take from this workshop is could you use those techniques with your students, so they needn't necessarily be maths or numeracy students. So as you can see, I always give an example the old-fashioned way, so you can see it's worked out, but also they've got a QR code, so it means that the students would scan that with their phone if they were revising or if they were late for the class. I've also used this for the flipped classroom as well, so it's quite useful. So try scanning that thing that's on the screen now with your smartphone, and don't worry if you have no success with it, I will play the video anyway. So try scanning that with your phone and see what happens. If you've had success with seeing the video, maybe you could put a wee smiley in the chat box. See how many wee smileys we get? That's good, we're getting a few smileys. That seems to be working for most people, but don't worry again, as I said, if your smartphone's not working, you're having problems with the QR reader app, don't worry, I'll play the video that the students would see and that some of your colleagues have seen already.
Bill and Ben share £18 in the ratio 2 to 1. How much do they get? Well, let's have a look. Bill gets 2 shares or chunks, we'll draw it like this. And Ben gets 1 share or chunk. So how many shares or chunks do we have? Well, we have 3. So how much is a share or chunk worth? Well, £18 divided by 3 equals £6. So that's how much each share or chunk is worth. So this one's worth £6. This one's worth £6. This one's worth £6. So we add those together. Bill gets how much? Bill gets £12. And how much does Ben get? Well, Ben only gets 1 share, which is worth £6. And if we add 12 and £6, we get a total of £18, so that's correct. So Bill gets £12 and Ben gets £6. That's our final answer.
So what you've experienced now is an example of what I call mobile blended learning. So it means that when the student has the worksheet, it means that if they miss the introduction, if they're late for the class, or they want to catch up, or they want to revise, they can scan the QR code with their smartphone very easily, go straight to YouTube and they can watch the video, they can pause the video, they can rewind the video. So it's very good, it's very flexible, very useful. Students like it. Okay, so hopefully most of you were successful with that. So I just want to, in a moment, I'm going to show another example of mobile blended learning, but this is really about contextualization. So if you look at the CD-ROM that's in the corner of your screen, that's a healthcare numeracy project that I was involved with about 8 or 9 years ago. It was Julian S. Valley College that was involved with Forth Valley College. I played a small part in that project, and I've got some PowerPoints that are on that CD-ROM. So I thought it would be quite nice to maybe update those PowerPoints and use the apps to update it. And this is what you're going to see. So you don't need your smartphone to scan this one. I'm going to play this one, and then I'll talk to you about it. So.
Your patient has been prescribed 100 milligrams of Curol. Curol is available as a 50 milligram per 5 ml syrup. What does this mean? It means that there are 50 milligrams of the drug in every 5 ml of the syrup. So if you give your patient 10 ml of syrup, that would be equivalent to 100 milligrams. So in other words, 2 times a 5 ml spoon that's what the patient needs to get. There is another way to do this calculation. What you want over what you've got times what it's in. What you want is the prescribed dose of 100 milligrams. What you've got is 50 milligrams times what it's in, 50 milligrams for every 5 ml. So work out that calculation and it gives an answer of 10 ml of syrup. In other words, 2 5 ml spoons worth. Your patient has been prescribed 100 milligrams of Curol. It's available as a syrup, 50 milligrams per 5 ml. This means you get 50 milligrams of drug in every 5 ml, so you could give them 2 spoons worth, which would be 10 ml. Or use the formula, what you want over what you've got times what it's in. 100 milligrams divided by 50 milligrams times 5 mils equals 10 mils of syrup, or 2 5 ml spoonfuls.
So I'll just pause the video there. So this is made from a combination of videos. I used an app called Tellagami at the start for the question, and then the middle section was explain everything, and then finally I finished off with the avatar again. That's Tellagami. So I'll explain those two different apps in a moment, and I'll also explain my method how I actually create those finished products, the actual videos themselves. So the key thing to get from this is that it's very colourful. You can see we have contextualised information. We have the drug, we have the prescription from the doctor, we have the label from the bottle of syrup, we have the use of colour here, and you can see exactly what this means. 50 milligrams per 5 mils. That means there's 50 milligrams of drug dissolved in every 5 mils of fluid. So, and it's very visual with the wee spoon there as well, the wee 5 ml spoon. So you could take this a stage further and actually have a bottle with a label and have a prescription and have the students actually working with that. So it takes the kind of boring worksheet to a different level. It's much more engaging. The students like it. They can pause it. They can rewind it. They can replay it as many times as they like. And it's really easy to access because it's on YouTube and then get there straight away with their mobile phone. So I find the students like this, and this is a good example, I think, of contextualization. So I'm going to talk now about the two different apps that I use, and then I'll talk about the method, how I combine it all together to produce the finished product, and that's probably a good place to have a short pause from maybe some questions, and I'll show you some more examples of mobile blended learning, and then we'll finish up with more questions at the end. Okay. Right, so you should see in front of you now the Tellagami slide, and this is the app that we mentioned earlier. The last video that you probably saw was a little bit rushed right at the very end, and that's because I was using the free version of Tellagami. So the free version of Tellagami, that restricts you to a 30-second video, but I recently splashed out on the Tellagami Edu version, which costs you £3.99, and that gives you the luxury of a 90-second video. So the thing is, though, with the constraints of the technology, sometimes it's a useful thing because it focuses your mind to try and keep things as short and concise as possible. So it's like if you're on Twitter and you're doing a tweet, you have to think about what's the basic information you want to get across. So sometimes a constraint like that can be useful. Anyway, in terms of Tellagami, I usually use that for the question, sometimes for the answer as well. You start off with, you create a scene. So I tend to use the background as a worksheet. So take a photograph of the worksheet, use that as my background. You can choose what character you're going to use, what they look like, and I've got a wee avatar that you've met already. Then you add dialogue, you use a voiceover. So I tend to do my own voiceovers, but there is a text-to-speech function which you can use if you want a male or a female voice, but it can be a wee bit robotic sometimes. So I tend to just stick to using my own voice as a voiceover. And then you save that and share it. And Tellagami, they call these videos Gamis, that's what they call them. So I then save that to my camera roll and export that to YouTube, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So that's basically how I usually make the question video. So that's the first part of the finished product. So that's the Tellagami app. So go on to the next slide and talk about explain everything. So this is the other app that I use. I should also mention that I do these on my iPad. They are also available as Android. So they're really free or very, very cheap, so not expensive. So explain everything. I tend to use that for the answer. It's like having a mini whiteboard on your iPad. So use the worksheet photograph as the background, sketch out the answer, do the voiceover, save it to my camera roll, and then export it to YouTube. But I'll talk about that more about it in a second. So this is the most important slide. So if you're paying attention, this is the one really to focus on. Or if you want to go for a cup of tea, just wait till you've seen this slide first. So this really explains the method, how I create a finished product. So we started off, if you look in the left-hand corner, you can see the Bill and Ben worksheet. You've seen that already. So you can see how that's got the QR code. So how do we get to having that finished product where the students can use their smartphone to scan the QR code on the worksheet and watch the video? Well, as I mentioned a few moments ago, everything goes through the camera roll. So if you look in the right-hand corner, it's talking about app smashing. So what does that mean? It just means you're using 2 or more apps to create a finished product. And in this case, I'm using 2 apps called Tellagami and explain everything. So what I do is I take a photograph of my worksheet, obviously without the answer on it, and I use that as a background. So I open up the Tellagami app, and then I record the introduction or explanation of what the student has to do, what the question's all about, save that to my camera roll, and then export that to my YouTube channel. So in terms of YouTube channels, it's very easy to set up and it's free. So I've got my own YouTube channel. So that's me finished the question part of the product. Then I open up the Explain Everything app. Again, I use the same photograph on my camera roll of the worksheet, and then I sketch out the answer using a stylus on my iPad, and do the voiceover and record that to my camera roll. Then I export that to my YouTube channel. So now we have two videos, the question and the answer, and we need to splice those two together. So you do that in your YouTube video editor, which is quite easy to do. It's basically like a drag and drop operation, so it's quite easy, it's not difficult. And then once you've done that, you've created a finished product. So you have a hyperlink to that on your YouTube channel. So you copy that hyperlink and then open up a QR code generator website. So there's lots of them, just Google it. They're free. So copy and paste a hyperlink to the video that you want, and then ask the QR code generator website to generate the QR code image. And once you've done that successfully, then copy that and paste that onto your worksheet. And then you can print off your worksheet. It's got the answer in the old-fashioned way, and it's got the answer with the QR code that the student can then access using their smartphone. And that's basically the method. So I don't know if I'm going too quickly there, but this is probably a good time to maybe start thinking about answering questions, because we've kind of summarised, you've experienced hopefully the mobile blended learning with your smartphone, you've seen a couple of examples, I've talked about the apps, and I've gone through the method. So now's maybe time to think about some questions. Do you have this in note form, please? The answer to that is no, I don't, but you could always email me.
Gavin, there were a couple of questions that we've had submitted while you were talking. The first one was from Julia Simpson. She asked, is it quite time consuming to develop these materials on top of teaching materials?
Very good question. How long does it take to create a finished product? Okay, it depends how complicated your video is. I mean, the simplest one would be to have a question and an answer. So that would be a Tellagami question and explain everything answer. So that's two videos you splice together to create a finished product. So you could do that relatively quickly, maybe half an hour. But I have created some quite complicated videos which have maybe 6 or 7 different things spliced together, and that could take maybe a couple of hours or longer. But in general, you can do them quite quickly, maybe half an hour. But as I say, how long's a piece of string? But it's quite easy to do once you get into the swing of it as well, once you're set up for it. So half an hour, I would say, for an easy one. I think it's still a bit of a novelty to them. As I say, I've been creating videos for the last 2 years. I've made hundreds of videos. If you look for YouTube, go into YouTube, look for Gavin Boyd Numeracy, you'll find all my numeracy and math videos. I've made hundreds of videos, up to about almost 33,000 views. So that's in the last couple of years. But as I said at the beginning, the students weren't really engaging in terms of using the VLE. They weren't really using Moodle. So I decided to make it a bit easier for them to access the videos, and that's where the idea of using the QR codes with the videos works, because it means that things are a lot easier for them. They can actually just scan the worksheet, they can take it away, scan it with their phone, and they're straight onto the video. So I found that's been quite successful, but it's early days yet. Like I say, I've only been pushing the QR codes for the last year. So at the beginning of term, I always say to them, download a QR reader onto your phone, and here's what it's for. So it's an ongoing process, but I think it's working.
I think I can see Jackie typing a question, possibly.
I can see also the explanation I will email Gavin. It was very fast. This is Kathy. Is that the explanation of the method, or I missed? Was that something else? Maybe Kathy can highlight what the explanation she's referring to. Is it the method for creating the finished product?
And Jackie's just asked, thinking of inclusive learning, do many of your students lack the technology?
I would say nearly all of them have smartphones. That's all they need. So how inclusive is that? So, I mean, think about it, 99.9% of your students will have smartphones. Not all of them will have computers. I mean, obviously we have computers in the library, for example, but they weren't using them, so it's a lot easier for students to just use their smartphone. Then again, I would say not all the students have smartphones that are suitable for this in terms of the contract that they have, or the problems with their battery and stuff like that. So some people just have smartphones that are just calls only, so they can't use this facility. But I think it is, for most students, the majority, this is a much more inclusive way of doing things.
I suppose also, since your college has Wi-Fi access for the students, then that takes care of the bandwidth issues if they're using their own smartphones.
Yeah, they don't seem to have a problem with it.
Okay, we have a couple of other questions. One from Ashley. She asks, is your YouTube channel copyright protected?
The YouTube channel, I basically made all these videos and anyone can use them. All I would say is that if you are using them, just acknowledge where you got them from, that's all. So you can use them whatever you want for.
Very kind. And Ewan asks, on the Tellagami website, it only refers to an Apple download version. Have you come across a similar tool for Android or Windows?
I'm 100% sure there is an Android version. You can Google it. I'm pretty sure there is. Like I say, I'm using it on my iPad, so maybe I'm not right in that, but I'm pretty sure there is an Android version.
Oh, in fact, Eric answers that question for us. He says there is a version coming soon, available in other countries.
Oh, there we go. So that's answered that question.
And Robert asks, could you make a lesson on how to use and link videos?
I'm not sure what exactly you mean by how to use videos.
You just explained earlier that you used Tellagami initially as an introduction, and then you did the annotation using the explain everything. I think he'd like you to produce yet another video for an audience to just explain your process.
I see what you mean. That's probably a good idea. I'll write that down, actually. Produce a video of the method. Yeah, I mean, that's the point, yeah.
That's great. And Alison asks, hi Alison, can I ask if your students use Moodle for any other aspects of their learning? Is there anything specific about the VLE that they find daunting?
I would say that it's only a minority of students that use Moodle. For whatever reasons. I don't think it's techno fear or any problems with technology. I mean, think about it. The students that I deal with, I can only speak about my students. I work in core skills, so we're talking about students who haven't, they've struggled at school with maths and numeracy. They're not self-directing learners, so they're not like university students that are going to manage their learning themselves. They really have to be told, pretty much prodded what to do. So this is not really a cheap solution that's going to reduce contact hours. It's an extra tool in your toolbox, if you like. So it's not a replacement for face-to-face teaching. It's an additional tool that's useful. So hopefully that answers your question.
We have one more question from Jackie, just before we continue. It's, have the other core skills subjects used your expertise for comms or ICT?
What I would say is that one of my colleagues who is involved on the technical side of things in terms of Moodle, I produced a Moodle course with my colleague George Gordon, and they're looking to put this forward as an example of good practice. I have shared my videos with my numeracy colleagues, and some of them do use them, not all of them, but that's fine, that's up to them. In terms of actually using those methods to create mobile blended learning resources, you're actually creating the videos. I'm the only person that I know that's doing that. There might be other people doing that, but I'm unaware of any. Any other questions?
I think that's it for now.
Did I miss anybody out? Do you want me to go just briefly through the method again? Would that be useful? This slide that's in front of you now, do you want me to just talk you through that again, or you can maybe play this on the recording maybe later? No? Okay.
I think Fiona and a few others said yes.
Okay. Right, okay, I'll maybe go a wee bit more slowly this time. So we started off at the beginning of the presentation, we had a worksheet. This was the Bill and Ben ratio question. So you see the one in the bottom left-hand corner. So that's the finished product, if you like. So that's the worksheet with the answer given the old-fashioned way, written out, with this Singapore bar method type that you see, and the QR code as well. So it means that the student, if they come in late, or if you want to use it as part of a flipped classroom, or they want to revise, it means that they can scan the QR code and watch this video, which gives an explanation for the first question, gives the Q&A for the first question. So that's really the finished product we need to end up with. So how do we do that? Well, I use my iPad. So I take a photograph of the worksheet, obviously without any answer on it, just the bare question itself, and I save that on my camera roll on my iPad. Open up the apps, open up the Tellagami app, and I use the background of that photograph that I've taken of the worksheet. And then I choose the avatar, so I just tend to stick with the same avatar, but you can choose a female avatar if you want. You can change what they look like. You can do your own voiceover, or you can do a text-to-speech, and it will then record it itself. But I tend to do my own voiceovers. So then I do the explanation of here's what the question's all about, here's what you have to do. So I mostly use Tellagami for the question, sometimes for the answer as well, but mostly for the question. Then I save that once I'm finished to my camera roll on my iPad. Then I send that to my YouTube channel. So now I've got my YouTube channel, I've got a question video, right? So now I need to create the answer video that goes with it. So then I open up Explain Everything, which is like having a mini whiteboard on your iPad. I sketch out the answer, again, use the same background, the worksheet as a background, and I sketch out the answer and do the voiceover, and that's where you can see the answer on the screen there. And then I record that, save that to my camera roll. And then once I've done that, I export that to YouTube. So now on YouTube, I've got two videos. I've got the question created using Tellagami, and I've got the answer created using Explain Everything. So what I do is I open up the YouTube video editor, which is okay, it's really like a drag and drop operation, and create a finished product, which is the question and the answer video combined together to produce a finished product. Then I take the hyperlink for that video that's on my YouTube channel, and I copy and paste that into a QR code generator website, and then just create the QR code image. And then I copy and paste that onto my worksheet with the answer now as well, given the old-fashioned way, and that's your finished product. Does that help? Any clarification required on that? Is that okay? Just wait and see if any comments come in. Because like I say, this is the most important slide. This is the whole method that's summarized, and then I'll show you some more examples, and then we'll finish off with final questions. So I don't think there's any more questions coming in. We'll just move on then. So I'll go on to the next slide. Let's go back to the worksheet. That's it. So again, get your smartphone, open up your QR code app if you've closed it down, and try scanning and see what happens. So you might want to hold your hand over the screen so it's only going to pick up one at a time. But this is a worksheet that was a colleague of mine produced this, and I've adapted it a little bit. It's a colleague of mine called Anna Calixto. So I like the look of the worksheet. I thought it was quite good, so I thought I could maybe use this. So we do share resources with each other. So thanks very much, Anna, for that. So try scanning the first QR code and see what happens. And don't worry, if your mobile blended learning experience is not successful, I will play the video so you won't miss out on anything. And again, if you have success, you can maybe type in a wee smiley. Lets us know things are working. And then once you've watched the first video, try scanning the other QR code, and that will show you how to work out percentages 4 different ways. And again, it's not a maths lesson, so I won't be testing you on this, but it's just to see if you can maybe use those methods or techniques with your students. That's right. Oh, lots of smileys. Oh, that's brilliant. Okay, what we'll do now is I'll actually play the videos just in case anybody was missing out. They had slight technical problems, so we'll play the first video. It's the pie chart converting an angle.
Spend my money. What percentage of my budget do I spend on rent? Well, measuring the angle for rent is 125 degrees. 125 divided by 360 degrees times 100 equals 34.7%, which you can round to 35%.
Oh, that seemed to pause, that seemed to cut out, that's okay. To do with mortgages. So, okay. Okay, so this is the final worksheet that we're going to be using today. And again, this is just an example, it's not a maths lesson, so you can see this I would give to the students. So always give the worksheet with the first page, it's got a worked example, so they can see it, they can read it the old-fashioned way, or they can scan the QR code with their mobile phone. So it's working out how much they could afford to buy. So there's a little bit of Singapore bar method there for anyone that's into numeracy or maths. I find that's quite visual, a lot of students like that. So try scanning them with your smartphone and see what happens. Like them. Like I say, it's still a bit of a novelty for students. We'll just move on to the final slide, and then we'll finish up with the final set of questions. So just to finish off, I would like to say that my students do like this method. I was awarded this EXA, the Edinburgh College Students Association Excellence Award. You can see what they did there for innovation in the classroom. That was just a few weeks ago. So I don't know who nominated me, but whoever it was, thank you very much. So the students do like it. I've made hundreds of videos. If you want to look for my YouTube channel, just go onto YouTube, look for Gavin Boyd Numeracy, and you'll find all my numeracy and maths videos. There's also, if you're interested in improving student behaviour, working with what I call the shadow in education, just type in Gavin Boyd Shadow in Education. There's also my website, it's gavinboyd.com, so quite easy to remember. And if you've got any questions, you can get in touch. You can email me at gavinboyd@edinburghcollege.ac.uk. And just as a wee final takeaway, if you scan the wee QR code, you get a wee message from a wee avatar, my wee co-presenter, just to say thank you very much. So